The purpose of Freethought Forum is to be vigilant to the encroachment of religion into government and to educate the general public as to what a freethinker is.
No hunter can trap them, no person can deny.
Welcome to Freethought Forum. I'm Fahringer, the producer of this show, and we've been doing a 4-part series on the Bible and religion and how it has affected our lives and our society, and as regards morals and education and abortion and a million other things. And we scatter about and skitter about a bit, but we want to share our thoughts with you. So here we go with my guest today, Ed Scharf, Harvey Kendall, and Chet Chiles. And Chet, you were just on the point of saying something when we started last time, and I had to interrupt you.
Well, last time we were on the moral issue, and it seems to me that our attitude towards drug use in our society today is largely a moral issue. People are concerned about it, and it just came to mind as we was talking about it that we had a president a few years ago who said that anyone who didn't believe in God was not qualified to be president. But this president found it in his heart to send American troops into Panama and got 2,000 Panamanians killed and several dozen Americans killed because of a pick with the head of state of Panama, who was kidnapped and brought back to the United States and thrown in jail for several years. We don't see the incongruity of morality and our feelings about drugs and our feelings about having 2,000 people killed and kidnapping and all of this sort of thing. It's
all done for patriotism. It makes it okay, and God, of course, is in on it.
Yeah.
Well, that Noriega thing, I mean, he was our boy. Didn't we educate him? And wasn't he worked with the CIA or something?
He was a graduate of that spy school.
That thing in Georgia, that awful thing they want to get rid of, that sounds like the most terrible place in the world. So, well, they certainly have to, it seems to, it's rather difficult, wouldn't it be, to be in the service and be an atheist, because war is what most of it's all about, and religion and war go together so well that, but there have been atheists, well, of course, during war, actual wars like the World War II. I don't think we've had a decent one since. Vietnam was a disaster, and I don't call any war decent. I hate to say that, but think of all the things that were destroyed and all the lives lost for what?
Well, was Desert Storm really much different than going into Panama? The issue was primarily drugs, controlled drug traffic, if it was really intended to do that. But in going into Iraq, the issue was basically oil, wasn't it? I mean, we're pretty addicted to oil in this country.
We're back to the subject of greed.
It all comes back to greed again, doesn't it? But think how many lives were lost in Desert Storm, too. And did it really improve the lives of women in Kuwait that was promised by that? Did any real morality come out of these situations?
Not that I know of, because first of all, when the guys came back and they were all getting sick and they wanted to know what was wrong with them.
And their kids were being deformed?
Yeah, oh my gosh, some of them were so terrible. Oh, it was pitiful, just pitiful. And the government was just turning a deaf ear, the Pentagon, oh, la-di-da. And we don't know about any poison gases or anything. No, of course not. Lie.
I wonder how they resolved that. God sent them over under His blessing and protection.
Yeah.
And then you come back and...
He sort of let him down, didn't he?
Sounds that way.
Really did. Well, did you have more? I interrupted you again. I'm just great on this interrupting, but I want to keep things stirred up here.
That's the nature of freethinkers.
Yes.
No, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Well, Harvey, we wanted to discuss somewhat, too, the attitude of religious people towards homosexuals, which I think, if you can say that religion has any moral standing there, they are so mean and awful and have inspired so many hate crimes that it's ridiculous to say, and they quote the Bible and say it calls it an abomination and all that stuff. Well, how do you feel about that? That's certainly
Well,
not
one time I got into my hands a list of all of the places in the Bible where homosexuality is discussed, and I read all of those places, and I was about to come to the conclusion that indeed the Bible does condemn homosexuality, but when you consider all of the other ridiculous things that the Bible has done, I say, so what?
So?
You know, but then also with some further study and some corrections by friends who have pointed out some of my foibles to me, I have also noted that there is most of those places that are cited as a condemnation of homosexuality are misunderstandings of the Bible. Some instances, bad translations, and others just simply taken out of context and so forth. But I cannot see that in the story of Lot's family, so forth. I think that it is quite clear there that the Bible does condemn homosexuality. But so what?
Well, they condemned a lot of things, like that, as I mentioned earlier, about seething the kid in its mother's milk, whatever that means. They didn't like that, and they told you what to eat and what not to eat. And
one of my favorites is where the Bible tells you that you shall not wear clothing made of two different fabrics.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sorry, Reverend Hagee and Jerry Falwell and so forth, but you're going to have to get rid of those suits that you wear because they have both polyester and cotton in them.
Well, you know, the folks that push family values often think of it in terms of a man and a woman and some kids.
Kids,
okay,
yeah.
That's the family and family values. But what about Jesus? Do you know how many times he might have been married, or was he dating, or did he like women even?
There is a...
He hung around with a lot of guys, I understand.
Yeah.
You're hanging around with these 12 guys all the time. But on the other hand, we really know so little of the historical Jesus, and there's even a question of whether he ever existed.
Sure.
Yeah, I question that. I was, one of the Bibles I brought today, I thought it was my version, the Holy Bible Revised Standard Version that came out in 1950 something or other, in 1952. My mother gave me one, and I thought it was mine, and I picked it up and started leafing through it, and things of hers fell out, which you can see I come from a religious background, but it was kind of sad. In here, too, is a little thing I started reading with great interest because, see, until fairly recently, like what, 10, 12 years ago, did I know there was so much icky stuff in the Bible. I hadn't read it. Like everybody else, I heard the messages the preachers gave. But so here she has that says, books of the Bible not in chronological order. For the most part, prophets arranged in order of length. Types of literature in the Bible: epic poem, Song of Deborah, probably the oldest composition in the world, 12th century BC, Book of Judges, oldest book of the Bible. Now, I don't know where she got this information because my mother was not a student of the Bible. Historical, and then it goes Ecclesiastes and Kings, thought written by a court recorder, quite factual and truthful. I can't vouch for that. Chronicles 1 and 2, same as history above, written 200 or 300 years later. Then it says short stories, love poems, Song of Solomon, of course, which is bizarre to say the least. What is it? Your breasts are like ivory towers, and your
well, there's some beautiful love poetry in the Songs of Solomon. Let's at least give some credit for.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that, but I do think breasts that are shaped like ivory towers are kind of funny looking. But
it's poetry.
But towers, he could have done it better than that. Towers is not a good.
All right.
Well, how do I know?
Some people like that. Some people like something else. All right.
Like a Picasso approach.
It has adventure, autobiography, philosophy, letters, and then the last thing written here, risque stories. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? And it says the end of Judges. Well, I wouldn't say that was the only thing, but I'm going to head for Judges right away. And then, of course, this came out, and my father was a prisoner of the Japanese, and I guess she cut this out because it was someone else's postcard home. We had 4 for my father in all those years, and they were heavily censored. This one is not. And I have no idea what my father could have said that would have been. But I just found this assortment of things in here sort of strange. But I thought when they changed the Bible from the King James and issued this edition, this lost a lot, because what they're losing is at least the poetry of the language. Thy and thou, and they did away with you, he, it, you know, that kind of stuff. It got, right now they have a rap Bible thing. Did you know that?
You've got to keep, they have to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
Be relative to the...
But it still basically says
period.
the same horrible things. It just sounds worse when you start translating it clearer. I mean, in words in the current vocabulary. So,
well, that doesn't bother me. It's the content that bothers me.
Oh, the content bothers me too. I was just commenting on that. I wondered why they would want to do away with the pretty part. It only points out the ugly part, I think, a little bit more, don't you? When you say, when God says to somebody,
when you start understanding something, then
you're in trouble.
Look out.
So,
well, that borders on the subject of censorship. Should we get into that?
Why don't we? This isn't censored. Should be. Who was it said it shouldn't be in school? Somebody.
I would think on probably all of us. You know, if they want to take out things like Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain's works.
It's one thing to have a Bible in the school library for students to, for reference to students, and I'm all for that, you know.
No.
I mean, it's another thing to distribute Bibles on a student's desk like this is some special book that you should read.
And meet me at the flagpole.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yep, they're still doing that. Oh, well.
Well, on this issue of censorship, there's something that's on my mind here. I am strongly an anti-censorship advocate. Particularly in the realm of the printed word and the internet and visuals and movies and so forth. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that this is something that we shouldn't distribute. But on the other hand, I always go back to the basics that as long as you have a thinking society, anything should be explorable. But notice that I have that caveat of a thinking society. So if I am going to follow through on my advocacy of non-censorship, I'm going to have to push harder and harder for people to think.
Right. Are you familiar with what's happening at Barnes and Noble's right now with the demonstrations and even the suit by the state?
There's
an
issue of so-called child pornography, accusations of child pornography. And I think that we should support Barnes and Noble. I am not an advocate of child pornography, but on the other hand, this book that the religious right is criticizing is not child pornography. It's simply a beautifully photographed series of pictures. And there is no pornographic content to it at all.
Well, that's the thing, that somebody decided it was porn, and that somebody was a Christian.
A religionist.
Yes. And there you are again. It all comes. The Bible says so.
And then how the followers of religion will rally around that person.
Without thinking.
It's just amazing to me. Without thinking whatsoever.
They
just know that because that is a religious person who brought that up, that must be right. And so they follow.
Divide people into the good guys and the bad guys. And so all you have to do is identify with the good guys and you got it made, see?
Yeah.
And
well, like the judge in Alabama with his 10 Commandments on the wall of his chamber. I mean, not his chambers, his courtroom.
The courtroom.
And saying a prayer in there. And he brings in chaplains, and somebody, I don't know, he didn't say it, but someone else said, when they suggested, well, we have different ones from different faiths, and he said, this is a Christian country, and kill all the Muslims and kill. Oh, I mean, that was really horrific.
I have a little personal experience about courtrooms and religion.
Yeah?
I was called to jury duty one time when I lived in California, and I was picked for a jury, and then they had to eliminate this. I think there were like 24 of us picked, and it had to be drawn down to 12. And in the process, the judge asked me if I swear by God to tell the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
That'd be a lie.
And I said no. And of course that caused a great big stir. And I pointed out to him that what he did was illegal. In the state of California, the judge may not ask you that question. I was thrown off the jury.
How about that? Well, what can you expect? There you are. Yeah, that being like this guy, Falkenberry. Is that Falkenberg or Falkenberry? Oh, gosh, I can't remember. But anyway, Al, he was at the convention.
Yes.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation convention.
Falkenberry, I think.
And he had to get up when the judge was called as a juror. He has been out of the closet three years, I think, or less, as an atheist. He just kept his mouth shut, and his wife did, and all these years. And suddenly, they just in their 60s, they just couldn't stand it any longer. And he was in the court, and the judge said, well, I've brought in Minister so-and-so now to offer the prayers for the day. And he said, anybody that doesn't like it can get up and go outside and wait in the hall. So he said, we don't have religious repression here. I love the way they say it. So poor Al, he's on one side of the courtroom. He has to get up and ooch through all these people and out the door and wait until the prayer is over. Well, there's another example. It takes a brave person to do that, and I commend you, but I don't think it was right for him to throw it. And I'll bet you the state of California has a constitution that specifically says, doesn't it, in that?
It was an amendment to the Constitution back about 20 years ago.
We have an excellent constitution for Texas, except for that one thing about the... Which,
except we don't follow it.
Yeah, we don't follow it, but it says all sorts of things. It forbids all kinds of things that we go happily along and do, not we personally, but the state does, that all of which are wrong and against the Constitution.
You know, you were saying, or Harvey was about, if a religious person says something, it must be true, so we'll all get out and rally.
Get out there.
Even William Jennings Bryan is famous for the statement, he said, if the Bible said that Jonah swallowed the whale, I would believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really blind faith.
It is blind
faith.
And what's that thing about don't get too educated because to be a fool, you're supposed to be a fool for Jesus or something. Well, I'll say plenty of people make fools in themselves, but they all do it together in great bunches, and then they're written up as being wonderful. And I was so mad today. I said to Fred, I'm going to wear my Freedom from Religion shirt on television. And I said, I want to keep it always clear that this is a free thought group that's meeting and giving this program. And I would like just to publicize it. And I said, furthermore, I want to always symbolize that to be a free thinker, we've discussed intellectual things. I mean, our condemnation is a critical look at how the Bible and religion have affected our society. I don't think, we can't find anything really good about it, and I'm sorry about that, but we've certainly tried, haven't we? But I see no hope for people that blindly follow this stuff. And Fred's advice to me always is, well, now calm down and cool off. And his father was a minister, and I think he's still got a lot of hang-ups, and he wants to not see, he assumed by my wearing this shirt that I'm going to be so offensive. I said, how can I convert any Christian or deconvert him if I can't even have an atheist agree with me that thought is something to be proud of. Thinking is something to be proud of. Reason is something to be proud of. Why are we always condemned for thought and reason? It just doesn't make sense to me.
The religions talk about their rights to lead us all in prayer wherever we are.
We are. Why?
Or stand out on the corner, or take over the parks.
Yeah. Half hour a week we get on access cable, and nobody watches anyway, but I feel like just to have the Freethought Forum listed in that list of religious programs on that channel 20, which might as well, I think, somebody asked me once, they said, oh, you mean you're on that religious channel? And I said, yeah, that's the point. It's not supposed to be a religious channel, and I want to get something out there that is different. There are so many people who don't know that you can be perfectly moral, a perfectly decent person, a contributor to your society, and not believe in the Bible and God. It is not necessary. It is worse for your country to believe that, Tommy Rod. Well, I've had my say, so somebody else take over. Every once in a while I just get on my soapbox, but you can see the impression that religion makes on people. It represses them. I know for a long time I thought of myself as maybe being tacky when I put on some bumper stickers. Well, tacky? How can I call myself tacky when all over town I see these things that, the religious things, and the fish with the cross-eyed fish.
The dead fish.
I have had that problem too of wanting to advertise my atheism and my opposition to religion. But prudence tells me that it's a rather risky thing to do.
And it shouldn't be. If this is a country that respects religious freedom, you can't have religious freedom if you don't have the right to dissent. Otherwise, you would have to sign a paper saying, well, now, all of these are the religions of this country. Now I will pick one, and then I have the freedom to pick from a jillion and one sects. But that's not religious freedom. Religious freedom is being free from it. And Bill Clinton, I'm so mad at him the day he said, just because we have freedom of religion doesn't mean we have freedom from religion. Boy, he doesn't understand it at all.
There's a basic misunderstanding of the Constitution.
Oh, terribly. Don't you think that if you're going to get into politics, you ought to at least know something about your own Constitution and the Bill of Rights and
Look, Bill Clinton's, isn't he a Baptist?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I've been calling him a Baptist. I hoped he was a Baptist.
Yeah, he's a Baptist.
Yeah. Well, what do you expect? I mean, what do you expect?
I know.
Except some Baptists are strongly in favor of separation of church and state.
Well, yeah, look at Trinity Baptist and Buckner Fanning. He is a great supporter, and was a chapter, sort of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and he was kind enough to let us meet in his church. I thought that was very decent, and so he puts his endorsement on that. But
well, on TV, whenever they have an editorial, take an editorial position, or somebody presents it, they always give the other side an opportunity for the same amount of time. I would think Sunday mornings when they have all these religious programs, those are nothing more than their editorial opinions. Why shouldn't they offer the same amount of time for somebody to
because those people have
respond?
got the money to do it.
It's big bucks we're talking. Greed factor again.
Even though I heard that Buckner Fanning gets 2 for 1 from the head of the CBS affiliate here. Is that the one he's on? Yes. I mean, well, he's on everything. You can't get away from it.
What is 2 for 1?
2 for 1, meaning the price he pays for his commercials that he runs. They give it to him for half price, technically, is what it means.
But that's definitely invading the business world, because you're using up some time that business people could use, or you're running their advertising rates higher.
And speaking of advertising, well, I didn't comment on that. Let me comment on something about, I think it's the Methodist Hospital. Have you seen their ad lately? It says working for the benefit of humankind and the
glory of God.
Glory of God. Well, I don't want to go to that hospital. If they're so busy praising God, they can't get nurses and doctors in there to look at me. I'm sorry. And that chaplain's running around, and I wrote about that. Now, this is I didn't bring this back. I got this at Barnes & Noble last week. This is the magazine section of the New York Times, and it's all about God. And just like you were saying that the other side never really gets a showing, all of this is about different, I haven't read the whole thing because I'm just up to here with God and beliefs, and I believe this, religion makes a comeback. But godless and proud of it got in there. They did an article on Freethinkers. Okay, they took a picture of Annie Laurie Gaylor, who is the editor of Freethought Today from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They took a picture of Ann Druyan, who was Carl Sagan's widow, who was there signing books and being darling and is so pretty and gorgeous, and Annie Laurie is gorgeous, took pictures of them, and then they ran a picture of two men neither one of us knows. Now, they may be freethinkers, but one of them, I'm sorry, Ed, but one of them is smoking. It gives the other one might as well have a drink in his hand or something, because they think that all we do is all the bad things in life. And to me, what a choice. You've got a choice between Andrian and two men that don't have names, just two men.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not a very complimentary article, I'm sorry to say, but this is the way when they ever get a chance to be on television. It's always with a Catholic, a Jew, an evangelist, and then they'll let one free thing, and they say that's balance, because they've got three different sects there, or religions, and then one free thinker. That's a stacked deck. That isn't equal time for...
Well, we see that the same thing in our local newspaper constantly.
Yes.
The number of letters to the editor that are from religionists,
Yeah.
as opposed to the very few that will stand up to religion. It's scandalous.
Yeah. Are we not writing enough letters, or is it that they drop
I think
them?
that may very well be true. As a matter of fact, I talked to one time to the editor of the letters page, and I asked him if that reflects the ratio of letters that he receives, and he said yes. He said they get far more in support of religion than they do opposed to religion.
Well, I
Well,
don't
that
think we're
figures.
as emotionally...
Figures.
That's one of the
loose,
great
isn't it?
weaknesses of atheism and of free thinking and so forth. We simply don't have the passion there.
Well,
that
unless you
religion has
hate, unless you hate,
That's a
that's
good
a
stimulus
powerful
for
passion.
Or
And-
fear.
Or fear.
Fear and hate.
Fear.
Yeah, fear and hate. Those seem to be the things that unite people much more than, because, you know, we all just happy with our own minds doing that clicking. But I mean, I love to explore y'all's. I don't mean that, but I just...
There's something positive, however, in
Yes.
the fact that the religionists get more play in the letters to the editor. What they frequently are writing about is attacking somebody who's made some statement against
Exactly.
their religion. Okay? See, to me, this says they are not really sure of their religion. They feel insecure,
Oh,
and
I
they
know
feel
that.
that their thoughts may well be changed, their values may well be changed. So we are a threat to them, see? So that's why they write letters attacking us.
They say love, but it's really fear and hate that drives them.
That's what gets them going. I think you're right on that, Chet. I agree that it's always ad hominem
And
attack.
that's the reason we don't have the passion to go out and convert, is because we don't need to.
Yeah,
we feel
we're
more
so
secure
content.
in what we believe. You know,
Secure in our no answers.
that's right.
Or the few we have.
That's right. Secure in the position
Questions.
of, hey, we're questioning in life. You
Yeah.
know, we're looking for new answers all the time to
Yeah.
various things, and so what we at any given moment think might be fact or truth, we're willing to give up if we
Yes, if we
there's
find-
more evidence.
Exactly. Well, we just about wound this one down too, but you're so right. We're willing to say, hey, I was wrong. You've shown me something now, but I don't know what you can show with invisible friends. And children are so criticized for having an invisible playmate. Isn't that funny? And grown-ups have invisible God and invisible Jesus. Well, on that happy note, we will end during this holiday season, wishing you a happy winter solstice. And you will be seeing this sometime in January, probably. Do tune in to Freethought Forum again. We hope to build an audience of thinkers. Thank you.
I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure.
My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure.
My thoughts will not cater
To duke or dictator, no person can